We are recording. Brandy, go for it.
Welcome all. We have Trailblazer Doug Hohulin, who is coming in live with solution architect from Nokia. His talk topic today is about the 21st century, the century of the billion and billions. When will we reach 1 billion 5G, XR, NFTs, and crypto users? And this is Doug Hohulin. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. Just start the slide. And do you hear me okay? Just want to make sure.
Loud and clear, Doug, loud and clear.
Okay, let's see. Unfortunately, give me one. Oh, there it goes. Good. Okay, so it's just a little bit about myself. I work for Nokia. I started my journey actually in 1989 with cellular telephone systems with Nokia. Let's see, something else came up. Okay, they're good. Okay, so I worked at Nokia. I came through Nokia through an acquisition of Motorola. And my focus is around connecting people to the people, information, things they value. And so I worked on 1G technology, going to 6G now. We're launching 5G and we're starting to plan for 6G already. Working on XR technology, AI blockchain, telepresence, distance learning, telemedicine, autonomous vehicles, smart city, and sustainability. And I'm part of Peter Diamandis' Abundance Digital Group. And I'm also involved in educators in VR and students in VR. In fact, I'm going to give a similar talk I'm going to give here today next week at an educators in VR event. The reason I wanted to talk about art history. So the history of humanity, in 1802, we reached 1 billion people on the planet. And when I heard about that date, 1802, I heard about, I knew about that date, around that time is when we got 1 billion people. My dad was a history teacher, so I like history. But I knew that in 2002, we reached actually 1 billion cell phone users. And I was thinking, well, this is just exactly 200 years. Isn't that kind of an interesting, just kind of, I like round numbers. So I thought, okay, well, what other things came along 1 billion, that 1 billion humans or 1 billion things? And so I started looking at that. One comment is that when I started working at Motorola, there were 7 million cell phones in the world in 1989. And 25 years later, we actually had more cell phones than humans on the planet. So just as a reference point of how things can change very quickly. So 1802, 1 billion humans, 2002, 1 billion cell phones. And then we started to have other billions, 1 billion internet users, 1 billion internet devices, 1 billion vehicles, 1 billion smartphones came along in 2011. Then you had AI devices. Actually, 2018, there were 1 billion people that were 60 years old or older in 2018. So then I started thinking, okay, when and actually in 2020, last year, 1.6 billion smartphones shipped. And, what are the ramifications of having this explosion of technology available, and how will it impact the NFT world and the cryptocurrency world? So that's what I'm going to be talking about. The technology I'm working on right now, mainly focused on, is 5G technology. And so I said, okay, when will there be 1 billion 5G users? And I think 5G will really help with cryptocurrency, NFT, people owning NFTs, digital twins, virtual reality, telepresence, and other things that are billion. So the 1 billion people, there's about 8 billion people now on the planet. These are the first billion are kind of the trailblazers, and then as we get then we set the stage for the next 5 or 6 billion people that come along. So I gave my first 5G presentation. I started working on it actually in about 2012. I worked on the Sprint account team. But in 2015, I had an opportunity to give a 5G presentation at the Trillion Sensor Summit. And the Trillion Sensor Summit was about how do we bring abundance and the Internet of Things to everyone. And so the hope was that even in the late 2020s, we could be a trillion sensors out. Now, we didn't get quite there. It looks like we're going to get a trillion sometime in the early 2030s. You know, in fact, ARM just announced recently that they'll have shipped 1 trillion IoT devices by 2035. So I'm thinking like 2032 is kind of when we'll be out into trillions of things, but still there's this tremendous growth. So, you know, I don't want to downplay 1 trillion, you know, being maybe 5 years off, because it's tremendous, you know, going from 1 billion to 1 trillion. But this was about the abundance of everything. And, you know, how, you know, the internet, and when we were thinking about the Internet of Things, it's like everything that could be connected will be connected to the internet, was kind of the thinking of this technology, where we were looking at in the 2010s. And the exciting thing is, like, the same excitement in the 1990s on the cell phone industry, in the 2010s of the smartphone industry, we're seeing that with cryptocurrency and NFTs. This, you know, the 2020s will be the soaring decade of a lot of abundance if we do it right. So I'm really hopeful and excited about what's possible. And actually, this talk was just so, this whole event has been so meaningful for me, as I'm hearing this history of NFTs and where the future is going. So it's really exciting. So anyway, we are social. Every quarter, they put out a report on what is the state of the digital world around the world. And they have like 200 pages of documents, but they talk about how many people are out there, how many unique cell phone users, 5.2 billion, internet users, and we now reach 60% of the population are internet users, and then social media as well. And so smartphones, and the reason I bring up smartphones is because I think smartphones and cryptocurrency, your digital wallet, and NFTs kind of all come together in this kind of perfect storm. So I think these all coming together can really explode the amount of NFTs that are used, the amount of cryptocurrency, and they make things less frictional. You know, just a seamless transition. In fact, the last speaker I really like, because it's like, how do we bring this to the masses? And since we brought cell phones and smartphones to the masses, I think we can leverage some of that, the lessons learned for that, to the cryptocurrency and NFTs as well. The average right now, and this keeps growing at 3 hours and over 3.5 hours just on your smartphone, people use on average. In fact, I saw one study that people were on the internet 14 hours a day in 2020. And of course, today, most of us have been on this call for like, what, 12 hours or so, 14 hours. So we achieved that number. So when will there be 1 billion 5G devices? So it was expected when 5G launched that we get about 1 billion people in 2023. And actually that number is running faster than expected. So at the end of this year is expected to be over 600 million 5G users. And so it could be even in next year, we could be at 5G, 1 billion 5G users. And a lot of that is in China. You know, if everyone in China uses cryptocurrency, makes an NFT, if everyone uses 5G, you get 1 billion people just from that, or from India. So, you know, these are how you get 1 billion people very quickly. At Nokia, we're looking at, you know, how do we add value to the world? You know, that's what we really can, you know, help our customers, help humanity. And so what we look at is at 5G, that we think there's going to be about $8 trillion of value around the world. And this report, this 5G readiness report, talks about this $8 trillion of value that we'll bring by 2030. And one of the areas in the report is around AI, blockchain, AR, VR in the enterprise, you know, autonomous vehicles, smart city technology, virtual learning, remote healthcare. So, you know, a lot of this technology around 5G is associated with AI machine services, edge and cloud performance. Just a very little of it is actually around basic connectivity. Well, little being 600 billion. That's, you know, I think that's a lot. But, you know, the majority of it is around AI. And so it's going to be really exciting to see what value we can bring to the world with this technology. So let's see. Okay, there we go. So here's another chart that was presented at a 6G conference in China. And it highlights that, you know, the trend, you know, when will we add this economic value? It's still ramping up as more and more systems are being deployed. And by 2025 is when this knee of the curve takes off. And, you know, that's where, you know, these other studies, you know, show the same trend. In fact, Qualcomm's here at 2035 is looking at $14 trillion economic value. One of the areas being retail wholesale. manufacturing. These are areas I think from a NFT perspective, a cryptocurrency perspective, could have a lot of value. So at Nokia, one thing we're looking at is, how do we add value in AI, the AI marketplace? If data is the new oil, the question is how do we extract that oil and do something useful with it, right? How do we, and so it's estimated right now from the different research reports about $3.6 trillion of market value of this data transactions, these data exchange. So right now, a lot of companies have siloed data, internal data, that's very valuable. And how do you release that value, but still be concerned about data privacy and regulations, and also how to model this data? How do you exercise AI and machine learning insights into this data to do something useful for it? Oil became valuable when people realized how to take crude oil and turn it into gasoline and all kinds of other byproducts. And so this is like, how do we release all this value of this data that are in companies, that are in enterprise and in people's homes as well? So this is going to be some interesting things. So Nokia has a product called the Nokia Data Marketplace, secure data exchange with blockchain and AI orchestration. And so we look like already Nokia is in these different enterprises. We actually have 200, we're leading enterprise wireless communication vendor. In the telcos and the energy, government, transportation, smart cities, we're already there. And then what we're looking at is how do we add value to our customers by giving them a data marketplace that they can exchange data securely with smart contracts. And so these are the technologies we're working on at Nokia. So in the report that we have at Nokia, we referenced the World Economic Forum, which was speculating that says, hey, and this was in 2018, they said, could by 2025, could 10% of GDP be stored on blockchain or blockchain related technology? And then the question is, can we imagine a possibility, not only is that 10%, but what if 50% of global GDP is on blockchain? And what does that mean to the world economy and the abundance to all, equality, and efficiencies to our world? And so that's the things I want to share about in the next few minutes. One thing as we talk about, there have been questions about, from blockchain's perspective, can I make it more green, more efficient? Actually, the mobile operators, this could be some lessons learned as well. As we started rolling out our technology, one of our key focuses is how do we keep growing and add economic output benefits, but reduce CO2 emissions. And so right now we added $2 trillion of economic output in 2020, but because we digitized everything, we actually reduced greenhouse gas emissions by a factor of 10x. So if what we're doing now, if we had to travel to a location, we'd be using so much more greenhouse gas as emissions. So we can get the best of both worlds. We can grow the digital economy and we can have a positive impact by reducing our CO2 footprint emissions. In fact, when Martin talked about using the portal a technology, so the politicians, the leaders of the world didn't have to travel around the world. So rather than travel all around the world, when like I said, I was working with an organization, Educators in VR, and they did a study where they said they took a 5,000 person virtual conference, and they calculated as rather than they took all the costs of using your computer and so forth, and what's the greenhouse gas footprint for that, versus then instead staying at hotels and using air travel and convention centers and so forth. And they estimated that they saved 7.5 million kilograms of CO2 emissions by not having to travel. So, I don't know how many people are at this conference today, but my guess is we're at least in the hundreds of thousands of kilograms of CO2 emissions that we saved because we did this virtually and not in person. So Bill Gates talks about $100 to $200 a ton a kilogram for CO2 emissions. So a 5,000 person conference is about $1 million. And the COP25 conference a couple of years ago, it costs $100 million to do all the traveling. But if you put the carbon emissions tax on top of that, it would have been an extra $5 million. So if we would do this virtually, think of the carbon savings and the footprint savings we would have. And by the way, they're actually, the COP26 conference, they're going to have a VR event, a meeting on top of snowy Antarctica. So if you want to go to Antarctica and minimize your carbon footprint, do it in VR. So with that, at Nokia, one thing working on 6G, we're starting to see this, we're in the physical world. The physical world is the world we had up until about 1960. And then we started introducing the digital world. So more and more of the world is going digital. And also you have the biological world, and you have the human machine interface technology coming out as well. And so we see 6G as a harmony between the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world, all coming together in this interchange and interconnection of those three worlds. And so it's going to be an exciting time. And like I said, I'm going to be speaking for an hour next week on this very topic. So Internet of Things, they continue to grow. And so you're going to get the growing of the devices. It's expected that by 2025, about 76 connected things per person. And when Cisco, they were looking at this how many things were out there. There's 1.8 trillion things out. They were expecting about 50 billion things. It's actually right now only about 22 billion things, but only 2% or less of things that could be connected are connected. And so think of how many things are in your house. How many of them can be turned into an NFT? How many of them could be connected to the internet? So this is going to be interesting to see how IoT, the Internet of Things, mirror with NFTs to bring more wealth and value into our world. So how many things are being manufactured in the world? Like clothing, 80 billion apparel items are manufactured every year, 5 to 10 trillion disposable items. So lots of things are being manufactured. And the question is, how can we make this more sustainable? Actually, SoftBank, they predict that by 2040, there will be 10 trillion devices connected to the internet. So this is explosion of growth that could add value. And so rather than grow the physical world, we're going to grow the digital world. So can blockchain and NFTs help to eliminate waste and find hidden value? I would answer the answer is yes. Byron Reese is writing this book about waste, and he asked the question, what would a world look like without waste? Look like no wasted paper, food, time, minds, or wasted lives. And he said, we can't live in this world without waste unless we have perfect knowledge. So I believe with IoT and NFTs, we can have a more perfect knowledge. And so we can minimize our waste and our carbon footprint. So how many things are there in the physical and digital world? And I would say if we grow the physical economy, CO2 emissions grow. Yes, maybe we can be a little bit more efficient as we grow the economy. But if we want abundance for all, if we want people to live in the developing world like in the developed world, the only way to do that is to grow the digital economy, and so that we can indeed reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So there's $400 trillion of wealth in the world. And the question is how do we make a more equitable world, have people especially in Africa and other places, have a more equitable and wealthy world? Again, my answer to that would be a digitalization of this world. So I like this slide from the 100 trillion USD dollars. Right now, cryptocurrencies around $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion. Gold is about $10 trillion. Real estate's $100 trillion. There's about the M1 through 3 money supply is about 110 trillion. I think I saw just recently. So there's this wealth. It will be moving around. Cryptocurrency will go down and will go up. But I was excited about what Tim had to share, that over time, it will continue to go up and up, and again, add wealth to the world. Right now, there's 100 million people that use cryptocurrency. When will it be a billion? According to this, Willie Wah, he was talking about maybe 2025. We'll see if he's right. I think it's probably maybe a couple years later, but we'll see. In brand clothing, one thing, I was given a presentation, and they said if, with this 80 billion clothes that are being manufactured, if nothing changes, 25%, a quarter of the Earth's climate budget could be due to clothing. So the question is can we use, digital clothing? Can we minimize the amount of clothing we have and be more efficient with that? And I think the answer is yes, we can do that. Virtual reality is another area to look at. When we go from a Zoom call that's still somewhat clunky, I was really excited about Portal, and because that makes it look like you're right there, right? And and that's this year's technology. You can imagine what it's going to be 5 years from now. So virtual reality, the Portal boxes, what's the we're going to be in the holodeck world. It's just going to be incredible where we're going to be at. And so can we be more efficient? Like 40% of clothes are manufactured that are never worn and just thrown away. That's a waste. So how can we make things more efficient? So shop like we never before, that you can put on your clothing and see exactly what you look like in maybe in the venue you're going to be wearing the clothes at, and say, this is exactly what I want to have. Again, so minimize the amount of clothing that's wasted and never used. E-commerce is another area to look at. It's just continuing to grow. The reason I bring this up is because, again, fashion and beauty, more and more the industry's e-commerce. Like in the United States, 37% of clothing was e-commerce. In China, it was 40%. Now this year, maybe it's not quite as big according to McKinsey, but we'll see. I mean, once people get used to shopping online, it's going to be hard to go back. And how can we make things more efficient? There's e-commerce credit. This is another trend to watch. How much is the digital or mobile wallet? How much is the credit cards? And then when will it eventually go to crypto wallets? So when will they start tracking that? That's going to be interesting to see. China, it's going to be interesting to follow their trend of where things are going and how they're going to do cryptocurrency. Again, when they make it, if that becomes big, if India has it, you can get to 1 billion people very quickly. So in closing, I asked the question, and I say this 21st century is the story of humanity achieving the billions. So how do we make a more sustainable and less wasteful world? How do we uncover hidden wealth? How much, there's 10,000 things in your house. How many of them, have lots of value if you can only release that value, with an NFT? What happens if you take 10%, even 10 things or 100 things and create an NFT to them? What if you all of a sudden could make $100,000 or even $10,000 from that value? How do you release value? So for everyone who bought the person who bought a Picasso at a garage sale for $5, or someone who sold a Picasso at a garage sale for $5. So, how do you value things? I believe NFTs and blockchain can help. So I believe that is how we can get abundance for all. So thank you for your time.
I'm so excited about 6G. I know everybody's all 5G, 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 but too much controversy. 6G, I researched and I love. So when do I get it?
2028. And in fact, last year I gave my 5G or 6G presentation. So 2028 is when 6G will launch, but I will then give my 7G presentation with my digital twin. So my digital twin will give the 7G presentation, and we'll see which one's the better presenter.
That's hilarious. I love that. So, you were talking about how it's going to, how 5G is going to really help with NFTs. And is that because you're thinking of the fact that the transaction or the bandwidth is less requirements for bandwidth, so more easy transactions over mobile phones? Is that what we're thinking about?
Well, so, 5G, you have IoT optimization, lower cost. The Internet of Everything is optimized around 5G. Then you have more bandwidth, and then you have like low latency and mission critical communication. Those are kind of the three elements of 5G. But behind that too is, like, for instance, Qualcomm's their new XR2 chip that came out. It had 11 times more capacity on AI capability than the old chip they had. So wow. What you're getting is not only the capacity from the 5G, but AI comes along with it. And so, like, right now, your cell phone that you have, that cell phone has the same capability as a supercomputer, the fastest supercomputer in the world in 2020 or 2000, the year 2000. So that supercomputer in 2000 costs, 10, maybe $100 million, somewhere. I should get that number, but it's definitely over 110.
I just got it last week.
Yeah, so you have all this abundance of capacity. And so how can you use this to optimize your digital wallet, cryptocurrencies, NFTs? This is what people carry around all the time. And how can you do that? Now, the other thing is eventually you're going to stop looking down at your smartphone and you're going to look up. And you're going to have your smart glasses, or eventually I'm thinking of it almost like smart vision. Your vision is going to be smart. And and how do you have this abundance and technology?
I'm really looking forward to that, because this is age related, and I would like it.
Yeah, 70% of people wear glasses. So so in the United States, so everyone's most people need glasses, and they're used to it. And so, but again, rather than looking down, because like when I'm having a conversation, I want to be looking at someone. You look at their face, right? And so if everyone's looking down, they're not connecting with people. But if you're looking out at the world and using smart vision to see the world in a new way, I think that's incredible. And look, and what would happen if you're looking at your home and it's identifying and says, okay, if you make an NFT of this, it's going to be worth $100. Or if you make an NFT of that, it's going to be worth $10,000. It's like, okay, well, let's just make an NFT of it. And if you have 10,000 things in your house, how many of them could have an NFT and create wealth that's in your house?
Well, what's interesting is I think of NFTs, especially when it comes to like the global marketplace and the ability of blockchain on handsets. For me, it's more like, what would happen if everyone had a sovereign digital identity? And I brought this up earlier today. A sovereign digital identity, all of their identity documents were on there. They were confirmed. Their identity could never be taken away. And then all of a sudden, boom, war-torn countries, refugees, they don't have anything. So what if they easily could, reclaim their identity by regaining control of their wallet, very, very simply. And then all of a sudden they have the ability to work, they have the ability to transact in business and commerce. And, the speed bump along the way is a lot less brutal.
Yeah, well, so 85% of people in Africa, in developing countries, use wireless communication for their broadband device. But like in Africa and in Asia, most places in Asia, other than the major cities, they're on 2G technology. At least half of them are on 2G. So think of if all of a sudden you had to work in 1990s technology.
No, I can't. No, do not make me go back to that. Is literally like my nightmare. You have to understand, I pay for gigabit internet, and every now and again it goes down. I'm getting like 12. And I'm losing my ever-loving mind because
you had to get 100 kilobits. Yeah, exactly. So see how hard it is, that inequality of bandwidth. So that's one area that we're working on. It's especially 6G, is how to connect the unconnected. That's something.
I want to thank you so much, and Adrian, what a beautiful job with all the questions. It's so exceptional. Doug, as a first-time AI showbiz person, you hit it way out of the ballpark. Thank you, and that was such good contextualization. Thank you for zooming in with us, and I hope you'll stick around. For just a reminder, our executive roundtable comes up from 6:30 to 7:30, where you get to share your goals, and we offer support. And so don't go anywhere. We have two of the most amazing Trailblazer talks coming up in just a moment. It's almost time for our next one, isn't it, Brandy? This day is just going so quickly, and I have always found in life the best times of your life go like that, and you have to just really savor the moment and stay present with it, which is my goal to do today. And we are entering the home stretch here, and it's time to introduce our next person. So I am going to stop the recording,